There's been obviously a lot of news that took place over the weekend that we simply have not been able to cover today. Yesterday, for example, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu announced another development in the Jewish nation's fight against Hezbollah in Lebanon. Prime Minister Netanyahu shared that the IDF, the Israel Defense Forces, eliminated Hezbollah's mass murdering chief of staff. And beyond that, there were other news items. We'd like to get to as many of them as we can to discuss. So joining me now is from the Washington Stand, Casey Harper, who's a managing editor for broadcast, and Mark Tapscott, who is the senior congressional analyst. Casey and Mark, I want to thank both you gentlemen for joining me. Good to see you.
Great to be here, Congressman.
All right, Casey, let me start with you. And the news is coming out of Israel that I just referenced. We now have a deceased Hezbollah chief of staff who was certainly more than a paper pusher. In fact, he had a $5 million bounty on his head. If you can unpack for us the actual destruction that this man paved.
Yeah, Hezbollah chief of staff. That's quite the title for your LinkedIn profile, right? But I think a lot of people maybe don't have as much familiarity with Hezbollah, what they are. Think of Hezbollah as Hamas to the north for Israel, from Israel's perspective. And in some ways, you could argue that they're stronger than Hamas, and they still are. And they're more fortified, more well-funded. They're one of these Iranian-funded groups that has been launching attacks, missile attacks on northern Israel for years. And actually, Hezbollah has been involved in attacking Israel since even the 90s. And so this is a decades-long thorn in the side of Israel. It's had different variations, different wars, and of course, different leadership at different times. And the same for Israel's had different leadership at different times. But they've been driven by this one core command, core conviction, which is destroy Israel at all costs. Parts of Israel have been evacuated for months and months because it's not safe to live there, because Hezbollah is firing rockets on civilians there, thousands of rockets, according to Israel. And so Israel's fought back. They killed this really, it kind of depends how you look at it, but it's really second in command leader who has been leading their Hezbollah's paramilitary organization, which has done allegedly kidnappings, killed a lot of people for many years, focused on killing Israel. So this is just the latest in this ongoing tit for tat between Israel and Hezbollah, but it is noteworthy because they had a sort of ceasefire in place, but I think that this target was really too juicy for Israel to pass up in their perspective.
Well, Casey, before I jump over to Mark, remind us just how phenomenally successful, I guess you can say, a phenomenal job that Israel has done when it comes to dismantling Hezbollah since October 7th and the terror attacks.
Yeah, I think October 7th was a real wake-up call, galvanizing moment for the Israeli people, the Israeli leadership, Israeli military, and they have really wreaked havoc on Hamas, of course, in Gaza, on Hezbollah and Iran. Now, they've paid a heavy price with public opinion of the world. They've taken a lot of criticism for it. And so you could say they've lost in that sense. But on the ground, when you look at the military aspect of this, Hamas is utterly destroyed. Their tunnels destroyed, their supply chains destroyed. Hezbollah, they've been, thousands, allegedly 3,000 killed. They've destroyed a lot of tunnels. Hezbollah has the same trick where they tunnel into Israel, which we're more familiar with Hamas. And then, of course, Iran may not seem relevant to this, but it's all sort of different heads to the same beast, anti-Israel beast. And so they've neutralized Iranians' nuclear program vis-a-vis the U.S., and they exchanged missiles for many weeks for many days, rather, that 12-day war, where Israel took some shots, but generally, held their own and destroyed a lot of Iranian targets. So Hamas, Hezbollah, Iran, all neutralized to varying degrees. And I'll remind you of that pager incident, Jody, where those hundreds and hundreds of pagers were given to Hezbollah terrorists, and then they blew up at just the time that Israel chose and wreaked a lot of damage as well. So it's been pretty systematic dismantling of Hezbollah.
Yeah, can you hear me now? That was one that we'll always remember. Mark, let me jump over your way and kind of broaden our discussion here. I think it's noteworthy that Hezbollah is a proxy of Iran. And of course, Israel's fight with them is one of several fronts, as Casey just referenced, a multi-front war that they're involved with. But another front, if we will, an eighth if we can, is what Benjamin Netanyahu has referred to as a battle for truth. What has Israel been up against on that front of this whole battle?
You know, you said in your opening, Congressman, that there was a tremendous amount of news over this past weekend. One of the most important things that we learned this weekend was Elon Musk and X let go with a algorithm that identified the location of a person who was posting on X. And lo and behold, what we discovered that a whole bunch of folks who had been posting all kinds of stuff on X, claiming to be in Gaza, claiming to be suffering or witnessing great suffering, all of which they attributed to the IDF, in fact, were fakes. They were in other places, London, in India. I think there was one even in Russia. And we're just beginning to get the full extent of just how many of these fake posters on X have been. That's an example of the kind of propaganda onslaught that Israel faces every day in the American news media, the European news media, and on social media. And thank goodness that Elon Musk said, yes, turn on the locator. Let's see where these people are.
Yep, that's good. And, you know, it is. I think that is a great example of the truth battle involved in this. And
Yes.
I think it becomes so important that that we have truth being spoken. Casey, going back to the elimination of this senior Hezbollah member, does his demise now send a greater, I don't know, potential of implications for the Middle East and on Israel's efforts and abilities and capacity to defend itself?
Yeah, I think it does, Jody. I mean, it does a few things. One, it makes you wonder how long these peace deals are going to hold up. I mean, Gaza, 3 Palestinian alleged terrorists, approached Israeli soldiers and crossed the boundary line and were killed over the weekend as well, the last few days. And so we've had these ongoing strikes despite the peace deal, the back and forth between Hamas and Israel. And I think that one seems pretty justified because Hamas is apparently retaking power. And then Hezbollah is getting struck as well. And so these peace deals, they're in question because Hezbollah is supposed to be disarming. The Lebanese government just kind of refuses or is unable to get them under control. And it seems like they were maybe gathering strength again. So one, it makes you question these peace deals if they're really long term. And then two, I think it sends a message to the Arab world in particular that regardless of what President Trump or the U.S. says about these peace deals, when it comes down to it, Israel is reserving the right to attack whoever they want. And I think they are working with the U.S., doing these peace deals, going along, submitting to the U.S., but also they're sending the message of, hey, we still control our own fate, and if we find a target and we want to send a missile over there, we don't always have to ask permission. Now, we don't know if they did ask the U.S. permission, but I think that's the part of the message they're sending here is we can still kill you.
Very interesting. All right, let me shift gears, gentlemen, and I'll jump back over to you, Mark. There's been a lot of buzz today over how President Trump might address the issue of Obamacare subsidies. I know you and I have had this discussion in the past, but fill us in on what's going on there.
I tell you, Congressman, I've been on the phone and on my laptop all day trying to get a good handle on where things stand. We were told this morning early by Politico that the president was going to make an announcement either today or tomorrow of his basic plan for there's going to be a vote sometime probably early in December, which the president and the House, the congressional Republican leaders promised to the Democrats as part of the deal to bring the government back open. And that vote will be on what to do about the Obamacare tax subsidies. Well, as the day developed, we also began hearing that maybe that's not going to happen, and it didn't happen today. And in fact, I was told on background by some folks in the White House that it may not happen at all. There's so much opposition growing within the House Republican leadership especially, though none of them have said anything on the record today. So it's going to be a battle.
Yeah, that is a battle, and that's information I was certainly not aware of. Casey, this whole issue was supposedly, at least, the whole reason why the Democrats shut down the government, correct?
That's right. We paid a heavy price for this whole debate. And Republicans always promised that when we reopen the government, then we'll have a debate and a vote on health care. And so I guess in some sense they're keeping that promise, and there is a promised Senate vote on these ACA subsidies coming down the pike. I think what we're seeing here, I used to work as a communications director on Capitol Hill. Of course, Jody, you know a lot more about Capitol Hill than I do, and probably you too, Mark. But what I think we saw here is sometimes when you want to kill something or stop something from happening, the best way to do that is to leak it to the wrong person preemptively and start a negative narrative in the media that's impossible to overcome. And so I think that's what happened here. Now, with that being said, I'm not sure this plan would have ever been successful. As you pointed out on the show, Jody, Republicans have never voted for Obamacare subsidies, ever. In fact, many Republicans have voted to repeal these Obamacare subsidies. So the idea that Trump could put his stamp on it and then send out some Obamacare subsidies, I think was going to always be a tough sell. Of course, Family Research Council has been really focused on making sure that we don't fund abortions or transgender care if there are any subsidies or changes to Obamacare at all. But I think it was always going to be a tough sell to, hey, Republicans, we've got to pass these ACA subsidies. But the thing I'll throw back to you, Jody, is I think what Trump is right about here is that affordability has to remain the Republicans' priority. Whether it's ACA subsidies or whatever it is, you have to keep talking about affordability, putting plans forward. If it's not this way, another way to make things cheaper for Americans who are struggling right now.
Absolutely. And by the way, we do have a petition on this to try to make sure that abortion and so forth stays out of it. Encourage our viewers and listeners, if you want to sign that petition, simply text ACA to 67742, ACA to 67742. All right, Mark, so what's going to be the outcome of all of this? Your prediction, you've got the crystal ball, so to speak, there in front of you. What's going to happen?
Well, I think we don't know yet, and there's two basic issues here that I think, based on what I've heard today, are the real core of the discussion that's going on behind the scenes between the White House and the congressional Republicans. Number one, there, as Casey just alluded to, affordability being the central issue, they're probably going to have some kind of a compromise on a 1 or 2 year extension of the tax subsidies. That'll make the insurance companies happy because it'll keep the billions of dollars going to them that they're presently getting. And it will do something that will allow everybody to say, well, we tried to keep things affordable. The second one, though, Trump, at least what I've been told, this is not confirmed by the White House, but I've heard it from some good sources, has said, let's raise the income ceiling for getting the tax subsidies to 700% of the federal poverty level. It's presently 400%. I have a suspicion that's the thing that really set off some folks on Capitol Hill saying, wait a minute, what are we doing here? I have to correct one other thing too, Jody, Congressman. Casey, I was a communications director on the Hill too, but the dinosaurs were still roaming over in Foggy Bottom at the time.
Mm-hmm. You didn't have to go down to the Smithsonian.
So you were in the Senate, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, it was a long time ago.
All right.
That's good. That's good.
All right, Mark, our time's just about run out. Mark, before I let you go, I got you, Georgia Republican Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene announced her retirement, rather stunning news. How is that going to impact the vote margin there in the House?
Probably giving Democrats some false hopes because there will be other special elections between now and the next Congress, and I don't see any real reason to think that, the margin's going to be maybe one vote closer, but you never know. I just don't think it's, Mike Johnson is accustomed to having close votes, and he's going to have some more.
He is going to have some more. All right, Casey, and last 30 seconds to you on the deportation efforts that the president has been involved with. How's that going? What's it look like real quickly?
Sure. I think the thing that people are talking about right now is they just hit 500,000 deportations. The administration is claiming 1.5 million self-deportations that would put them at 2, but still less of the deporter-in-chief, Barack Obama, who did 3 million deportations in his time in office.
Well, it's not over yet. Let's wait to see what
true.
happens. Thank you, gentlemen. Casey Harper, Mark Tapscott of the Washington Stand. Always great to have you join me.